Once again, anyone who claims to know what's happening, just like during the Wagner coup, is mistaken. We don't know for sure what's happening, but I'm going to present you with what we have. This is from TASS, which is a Russian state news agency. So they give some facts here. Yes, basically, there's a private jet which is registered in Prigozhin's name. Okay, in the Wagner chief's name. As a matter of fact, there's a second jet in a moment that's also registered in his name. All right. And they say that this private jet crashed in the Tver region, just north of Moscow, on Wednesday. So he was headed from Moscow to St. Petersburg. All right. And there are 10 people on board. 7 of them are passengers and 3 are pilots. And they say everybody on board is dead. All right. Now, on the flight manifest, Prigozhin is listed as a passenger, according to the Russian Aviation Agency. All right. Now, let me explain something to you. Just because Prigozhin is listed as a passenger doesn't mean that he was necessarily on the flight. Okay. I think in all likelihood he is actually dead. But just let me explain something about protocol. Usually, what you'll have is you'll have a decoy plane. Okay. So, for example, the U.S. president flies on Air Force One. Well, there are 2 planes in Air Force One. They are identical, right? Down to the nuts and bolts, identical. And the entire purpose of this is not just to splurge money on 2 private jets, but to confuse the enemy. Okay? And same things with convoys, right? So you have convoys of cars. You try to confuse the enemy. So it's no surprise Prigozhin, who not only has the money because he's a businessman, but also, running a PMC like Wagner, a private military corporation, being in war, he understands. He understands how it goes. You need a decoy. Okay? Now, TASS say this jet crashed in the Tver region, okay, near the M10 highway, and all were killed. No casualties on the ground from the plane crash. Okay, so basically nobody on the ground was hurt because of it. Now, the list of passengers includes members of private military company Wagner, as Prigozhin, Dmitry Utkin, which is who's another big character, and Valery Shekelov. Okay, now they say they're investigating the crash. Okay, so as of now, there's no statement, there's no response, there's nothing from Putin or Lavrov. I mean, it's not Lavrov's department, but nevertheless, no one from the top brass has said anything about this. Okay, I think Biden mumbled some crap about like, it's Putin who's behind it. Yeah, of course. Every time someone farts and coughs, Putin is behind it. Of course. So let me just show you quickly here. This is Wagner's Telegram channel. All right, and from the tone, so they're from the posts that they forwarded, and from what they're writing, I mean, they're basically confirming to us that he's dead. Okay, but once again, we don't know for sure. We just don't know for sure. Okay, I'm just showing you what the major players are saying. What is the government saying? What is the aviation agency saying? What are the first responders saying? What are Wagner saying? That's what I'm giving to you. Okay, because these people are going to shape the narrative and hopefully give us the truth. Now, there are many videos circulating online, but I'm not going to play any of them to you because I cannot verify them. And it reminds me of Syria. In the Syrian war, you got this like shaky footage. You have no clue whether it's from Aleppo, whether it's from Damascus. So we're not going to go through all of that. Okay. You have people though who are very happy about this. Okay, very happy because for them, whether they're Ukrainian or they're Russians, they're happy about this for 2 different reasons, right? The Ukrainians are happy that Prigozhin is dead because he took Bakhmut. That was the longest battle in this war up until this point. So, it does count for something. They hate him because, he runs Wagner and Wagner is very successful. And there are, however, on the Russian side, you have some Russians that are actually happy about this because they view Prigozhin as a traitor. Remember 2 months ago, what happened 2 months ago? Wagner, under Prigozhin, shot down multiple Russian aircraft, and they killed 13 Russian soldiers. Here, I'll read this to you. This is from Forbes magazine. So they say that Wagner shot down 5 helicopters and an Il-22M Kud aerial command post and radio relay plane. It's this thing, okay? These are very, very valuable. I think the Russians, they have maybe 24, maybe a little bit more in stock. So, like, not only are there actual, fellow Russians on board, but the goddamn plane is crucial to the war effort. And Wagner killed, the Ukrainians have tried so hard to shoot these kinds of planes down with no success. And then Prigozhin just comes along and blasts it out of the sky. And, at the time, Putin said that he, there's this famous clip, actually, that a lot of people were posting at the time where, the host is asking Putin, is there anything that you can't forgive? And he says, yeah, but it's betrayal. Betrayal is what I cannot forgive. And obviously, Prigozhin's behavior, I mean, I don't know how else you could describe it. We have to speculate now about what happened. There are many people, okay, who would like to see Prigozhin dead, right? As I just told you, that some of them are on the Russian side, and the majority of them are on NATO's and Ukraine's side. Now, the thing is, he was pardoned, right? The charges were dropped, rather, against Prigozhin, and they raided his house. They filmed it and they posted it online and to humiliate him and remind him who he is and put him back in his place. But basically, Lukashenko and Putin said to Prigozhin, you can go to Belarus and move your operations to Belarus, but you're not coming back to Russia. And lo and behold, Mr. Prigozhin is flying around Russia. I just told you he died on his way from Moscow to St. Petersburg. And this is not the first time. This guy, ever since, for about like 2-3 weeks after the coup, the so-called coup, the mutiny, he didn't set foot back in Russia, but then he's zigzagging all over the place. Just 2 days ago, actually, he was in Africa, right? So there's a little bit of a debate whether he was in Mali. I think he was doing a little tour. You have to understand something. Mr. Prigozhin is not just, a military man. He's a businessman, right? So when he sees this coup in Niger, right, which I covered extensively, please go watch those videos and inform yourself. But when he sees the coup in Niger, which he supports very much, he released an audio message saying, well done, etc., right? And he knows that this is a business opportunity because Wagner have got deals with a lot of African countries, specifically West African countries, Niger's neighbors, right? I mean, no wonder they have contracts there. You know why? Because the French and the American troops who helped create these jihadists in the first place, who helped create Al-Qaeda in the first place, don't want Al-Qaeda and the jihadists to go away, because that means they would have to go away, pack up and leave their bases. They don't want to leave their bases. The Americans and the French want to keep their bases in Africa. Wagner, on the other hand, just want to get the job done and actually rid the country of the CIA and MI6 scourges that have been inflicted upon these African and Middle Eastern nations. Do you understand? That's why Wagner is successful. Now, with Prigozhin, was he assassinated? We are speculating. I have no clue if he was assassinated. This could very well be, mechanical error, maybe a human error, whatever it was, just a simple problem that caused the plane to crash. Now, there are people posting photographs of the debris. Once again, I cannot verify these. I have no clue whether these are actually real. Take a look at this. There you go. So, people are trying to point out the fragment holes here. Right, so this could be the result of surface air missile, anti-aircraft, and so on. But the thing is, no one has reported seeing an anti-aircraft missile. There's a video that you're going to find probably if you go digging with a blue sky and a bunch of clouds and people saying, look, there's a surface-to-air missile and it's going after his plane. I don't know that. We can't prove that. We don't know. We can't verify it. This is, by the way, this is Prigozhin. This was his first video since his mutiny. And he just like randomly shows up in Africa.
Работаем. Температура плюс 50. Все как мы любим.
We are working. The temperature is plus 50. Everything as we like. Wagner PMC conducts reconnaissance and search actions, makes Russia even greater on all continents, and Africa more free. Justice and happiness. For the African people, we're making life a nightmare for ISIS and Al-Qaeda and other bandits. We are taking true warriors into service and continue fulfilling the tasks that were set. We made promises we would succeed.
Now, again, I'm going to speculate here. And say that perhaps, again, it's just hypothetical, the Americans and the French were very upset at Mr. Prigozhin because he's basically coming in and, giving Niger and Burkina Faso and Mali and all these West African countries who have suffered under the French colonial boot all the more reason to kick out the current French troops because they don't do anything. They are useless. They have no intention of actually defeating the scourge that they created themselves. Now, did they shoot down his plane because they didn't want him expanding in Belarus, expanding in Niger? I don't know. But this is one hypothetical, one possible reason for Prigozhin's demise. Again, the first one that I propose is simple mechanical error, right? Just because you are famous or rich or a businessman like Mr. Prigozhin, that doesn't mean, unfortunately, doesn't mean that you're immune to, mechanical or human error on a plane. God forbid. But another thing is that, Biden saying, oh, well, Putin actually did this. This is ridiculous. Let me tell you something. I've been covering the BRICS summit. Russia wants to look good at the BRICS summit, okay? Especially because Putin was not able to come, right? Because of this ICC warrant. So, and by the way, when they played Putin's recorded speech, right? Because he can't be there physically, the whole room was like whooping and cheering and clapping for him. They did that for nobody else. Russia wants the BRICS summit to go well, okay? It's in South Africa. Nevertheless, they're a BRICS member, a founding member. They want that to go well. Why would they go and then, assassinate Prigozhin at the same time as the summit and take away the attention, take away any possible benefits that they would reap from this engagement at the BRICS summit? Remember, it's not just 5 countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. You got 40 heads of state who are there. Interest in BRICS, in joining BRICS, has never been higher. Never. So think on that. Now, there is a possibility here. I'm gonna raise another hypothetical, and again, we're speculating. One reason or one way that he could have been killed is that people in the Russian government or the Russian military who are so, angry and upset by Prigozhin's behavior with this mutiny 2 months ago, by his behavior when he shot down, 6 Russian aircraft and killed 13 Russian service members. They are angry at him. I can assure you, you will, if you look, you will find these people. Now, does that mean that they plotted, some of them plotted to kill him? I don't know. What comes to mind, though, is that Prigozhin, as I said before, he's not just like a businessman, a random businessman who has a private military corporation. He is hand in glove with the Russian state. Yes. This is why he fought the Battle of Bakhmut. This is why Wagner troops are being integrated, and Putin wants them to be integrated into the Russian armed forces. Okay? So he is not a stupid man. This guy has Decoy private jets. Okay? Just a private jet that serves no purpose but to confuse the enemy. Okay. You know, when you're someone like Prigozhin, you're going to have very, very tight security, very, very tight counterintelligence, you know, changing your routes of travel every day, you know, basically boarding one flight, but actually getting on another, all kinds of things, right? So imagine how sophisticated an adversary has to be in order to get close to Prigozhin. Think of how sophisticated, how smart, and how many resources an adversary, an enemy, would need in order to get close to Prigozhin's jet and sabotage it, you know, put a bomb in it. Who knows? Who knows? Okay, so right now, as of this moment, it is not clear whether the plane crashed because of mechanical failure or whether it was shot at by a surface-to-air missile or whether there was a bomb on board, okay? Or some kind of other sabotage, right? You can apply some Boston brakes, if you know what that means, on a car, right? You snap the cables, the brakes don't work, and then someone crashes. That's on a car, though, right? I'm just giving you an analogy. This guy has many enemies, okay? But I really, really struggle to think and to believe that this is Putin who did this. I think that's ridiculous. If he wanted to get rid of Prigozhin, he would have done it another way. He would have, you know, what Prigozhin did with his mutiny. You have to understand, this is not like some kind of random, you know, random crime. Like, oh, he shoplifted, he stole something. He marched an army on Moscow. Okay, I mean, that's a bit of an exaggeration because he was all the way back a few hundred miles. But nevertheless, he threatened the Russian state, right? He didn't mention Putin by name, but he acted upon those threats and shot and killed 13 Russian service members. So this guy, he has many enemies, and Putin could have locked him up right then and there. Putin could have done anything he wants. You know, Prigozhin handed himself on a silver platter. He said, you know, I committed a capital crime. I betrayed my country. You know, I committed treason. I brought an army against you. You can do whatever you want with him. You know, in the old days, the president would, you know, send him to the gallows. So if Putin wanted to have Prigozhin dealt with, he would have done it a long time ago. He would have done it immediately to make an example out of him, and not just like, you know, secretly planted some kind of shoe bomb on his private jet you know, during the BRICS summit. This is ridiculous. So we have to wait and see what happened. We don't know whether it was mechanical failure, whether it was sabotage, or whether it was attacked directly by a surface-to-air missile or by another aircraft. We don't know. Now, this brings me to the second jet, the Decoy. Okay, so there's another plane that was flying the same route, also registered in Prigozhin's name, and this plane landed safely shortly afterwards, right? So after they saw what happened, they veered off course and landed immediately. For all we know right now, Prigozhin could have been on that second plane. Maybe he's still alive. We truly do not know. In the following hours, in the following days, things will become clear. Okay. You know, the Russian aviation agencies, the news agencies, they're all saying that his name was on the flight manifest. I believe them. But again, that doesn't mean anything because someone like Prigozhin is going to check in. I mean, it's his plane, right? But he of course, he's going to put his name on the manifest and he just get in another plane because he can afford to, and he must do that. He must do that for his security, for his survival. He must be devious, right? Well, it's not devious. It's more like clever and cunning. But you understand, the fact that his name is on the manifest does not mean anything. So we need additional proof, okay? We need to know what happened, and you know, I assume through the dental records they'll be able to identify the bodies and so on. I see Prigozhin, you know, where do we go from here? I see Prigozhin receiving a state burial, you know, a state ceremony with full honors. Not because, you know, he ever served in the military, in the Russian military. I mean, he did in a way, of course, right? As an auxiliary force. Wagner and the Russian military are one and the same. They're all loyal to Russia. They're all loyal to the president, to Putin. They're one and the same. So he will be treated as a hero in death. Okay, that is what I expect to see. They will give him a state burial with full honors and so on. Even though despite what he did with this mutiny. But again, you have to be very, very clever, very, very sophisticated, very cunning, very capable. You must have vast amounts of resources to get close to this guy and actually kill him in this manner. And that's if it was sabotage or a deliberate attack. Do you understand? And so if this is the case, it can only be NATO, right? So we're talking about CIA, we're talking about MI6. Everybody else, I mean, not really worth mentioning. And then, of course, the other side of the coin, you might have some angry generals or some angry service members in the Russian military who basically go behind Putin's back or think that they are doing Putin a favor, actually, right? That maybe they suspect Prigozhin is going to betray Russia again, and so they need to kill him in advance so they can stop him from doing that. Who knows? Again, we are speculating here. All of these scenarios are possible. To me, the one that seems the most likely, or rather, I'd say the two that seem the most likely is that it was either NATO, MI6, CIA who did this, or it was a bunch of some elements within the Russian Ministry of Defense or the Russian government who did this without Putin's consent or knowledge. Okay, that's what I speculate. That's what I think are the most likely scenarios, right? Because only a few characters, only a few entities have not just the motive but the capability, right? And the drive to actually execute such an operation. You have to be very, very sophisticated. You have to be a state actor to do something like this. No question about it, right? So again, we are, right now it's about it's 1 a.m. Paris time, right? It's midnight in the UK, and 24th of August. We don't know. We don't know if he's actually dead. There are always conflicting things on Telegram. There are conflicting things on the internet, of course, because nobody knows what's going on. So the best thing to do is to, exercise some caution. I don't think Wagner will fall apart. A lot of Ukrainians, a lot of people in NATO think that if you cut you cut off the snake's head, in this case, Prigozhin, the Wagner will just dissolve and fall apart. No, it won't. It absolutely won't. We're talking about one of the most successful private military corporations on the planet, right? Wagner is everywhere. Now, for good or bad, the point is that they're sophisticated. They plan things in advance. They know what they're doing. They have a contingency plan in the eventual in the eventuality that Prigozhin, the head or the commander are killed. Of course. They're not stupid. Just to give you an analogy, but this is again, it's more of an extreme analogy. If in the case of nuclear war between Russia and the United States or NATO, even if for example, hypothetically, you took out the entire Russian leadership in one fell swoop, right? You got Putin, you got Shoigu, Lavrov, all the generals gone. The Russians have a system called the dead hand. So there would be nuclear missiles launched back at NATO and the United States either way. And don't forget, you have the nuclear-powered and nuclear-armed submarines that are, nobody knows where they are, but they're quietly swimming through the oceans, and they are ready to strike, and they have the authority to strike in such an eventuality. Okay, it's a bit of an extreme analogy, but you get the point. Just because you kill the leadership doesn't mean the organization falls apart. Quite the contrary, right? Quite the contrary. So right now, let's wait and see what happens. Tomorrow, I'll be back. I'll be live again because I'm covering the BRICS summit. Okay, this is another huge thing. I'm telling you that this summit is not only the most important BRIC summit ever, well, in addition to the first one, but it is going to have repercussions for many, many, many years. Okay, very, very special, very important. So you can see the live thread on Twitter. Okay, I'm doing live threads every day on the BRICS Summit in South Africa, and tomorrow I'll be back here live. I'll give you updates on Prigozhin, and I'll give you updates on the BRICS Summit and what that means for the emerging global South, for the multipolar world. At the end of the day, 10 people died in this plane crash. Okay, we don't even know who the other people are besides the Wagner, CEO and commander. 3 pilots, right, and 7 passengers. At the end of the day, these are human beings who died. So that is a sad event. It's very sad. Then when it comes to the politics of it, a lot of people are pissed off. A lot of people think he deserved it because he did that. He ironically also killed Russian service members who were in the sky, right? So they view it as like poetic justice. You shot Russian soldiers in the sky and killed them. Now you got shot in the sky and killed. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind, right? I think it's a good quote. But honestly, I don't think that it's to such a point that you can just go behind Putin's back, and assassinate the head of Wagner. I don't know. There's something off about this theory to me, right? I don't think it was Putin. It's just, he could have just done it when the coup happened. Like, why wait 2 months till the BRICS Summit? This is stupid. I think the number one answer, and again, it's just a hypothesis now, is that it was NATO. It was MI6, CIA. I mean, look at the sabotage already, right? The sabotage of Nord Stream, the Crimea Bridge, the Novakhovka Dam, and now threatening to they always like cook up this tension with the Zaporizhia nuclear plant. And also, in addition to industrial sabotage, look at the assassinations. You remember in the New York Times, they were writing about how the Americans were guiding the Ukrainians to assassinate generals, right? So this is, these are really like targeted killings of top brass, of top officials and commanders, right? It's not easy to get access to a general. You're not going to find them on the front lines like in the old days, charging on a horse or something. So it is, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary. Do you understand? That's what I'm saying. We'll wait and see. If it really was NATO, I think Putin would say it. I think Lavrov would say it, right? Just like they said CIA and MI6. The UK, US and UK blew up Nord Stream. They didn't hold back or bite their tongues. They said the truth, right? They just said it. So if it really is NATO, then they'll say it. No, I think that that makes sense. Keep telling me in the comments what you think happened to Prigozhin, and we'll see.